Right, we'll start here by setting up our VPC in region Ireland. So we'll give it a CIDR block of say /16 10.100.0.0/16. Create VPC. Now we'll create our 4 subnets, 2 private, 2 public. So private and public in AZ1 and the private and public in AZ2. Deploy DDVE in the private subnet in AZ2 at the end of this video. So we'll do it on one go. See here the address space is part of that broader, there's subnets up to /16. So 10.100.100.0, 10.100.101.0, 10.100.200.0, 10.100.201.0. All part of 10.100.0.0/16. You can see here as well that I'm selecting the AZs. So you can see private public AZ1, private public AZ2. They all look good. Right, so we come with a default route table, right? So we're going to have to create some new route tables to kind of classify our subnets into what's public facing and what's private subnet facing. All right, so we're going to create a private route table here, and what we'll do is we'll associate the private subnets to this route table. Right, so they're private, they can't get out to the internet, right? So they've only got a route. You see the route there. Skip over it. They have a local route to everything in the subnet. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to create a second one for our publicly facing subnets, and we'll associate our public subnets to this new route table. Our public subnets. Okay, you can see the route down below. Well, we skipped over again, right? So there's no real difference here, only that we've named one public, one private. So now we've got to make this route table routable to the internet by attaching an internet gateway to this routing table. Right, so the internet gateway does exactly what it says in the tin. It allows you to get to the internet from that subnet. The gateway, associated with its VPC or attached to VPC. Running one VPC. Right, so let's go into our public subnet, our public route table rather. And then we'll add a default route via this IGW we've just created to the internet. So 0.0.0.0/0 via the internet gateway. And now this is what makes this subnet public. So there you go. In a little under 5 minutes, we've set up our base infrastructure. You can see here, it's a good way of visualizing it. Right, we're route tables, we have a network connection to the internet, and we have our 4 subnets. Right. So up next, we're going to deploy. We need to be able to get into the environment some way, right? So we're going to deploy a Bastian host with an EC2 instance. In this instance, I'm going to use a Windows machine, simply because it just gives me easier browser access. I can deploy PuTTY on it and so on. Right. So here, what I'm doing is just creating a key pair so I can get access to when I want to connect our RDP to the server. Right, so just a little bit of pre-work. It's a PEM file. And we just download that to my local machine. We'll use that later on when we connect our RDP. All right, so now we're going to launch the instance. Take a free tier instance again. Jump Bastian server. We've got to give it a name. 2019. Windows. It was 2019 base because I kind of prefer the interface, to be honest. Bastian demo. Right, and we're just going to create a new security group here as well, right? Just to allow RDP in, right? So we're going to come from my local machine out on the internet into the Bastian server or jump server in the public subnet so we can get into the environment. Writing something here, we will load from all IPs. Clearly, if you were doing this in a production environment, this is for demo only, right? So we clearly lock that down more. Specific IP, specific hosts, and so on. So allow RDP in. That's port 3389. We should be good to go. Launch the instance. Quick look at our security group here, actually, and you can see that, right? So the security group, now RDP in. Right. We're kind of cheat with the video here now. We're going to pause it and back up when it's done. Oh, it's done, it's running. So usually this would take 3 or 4 minutes. Now we're going to connect via RDP. Connect to the local RDP client, connect using RDP. All right, so there's a get password, upload the PEM file. I'll attach a link to how this is done on our blog. Decrypt password, copy the password. All right, download the remote desktop file. It'll just open RDP locally on your machine, on your local machine. Open file. Add the password we've just decrypted. And we're good to go. Right? So in here we are. So let's just open up, take a look at its IP address. It's going to have a local IP address. Over to that 10/100/00 subnet. You can ping its local gateway, end at 100.100.1, and I can also get to the internet. We'll park this for a while and we revisit the use of the Bastian host obviously. Right, so next up we just want to create the AWS bucket and create the permissions and policies around that and create the role for DDVE that we attach as part of the CloudFormation template to allow it to access S3 in a secure fashion. I've done a long, exhaustive video on this. I'll attach the link to that video and that blog post at the end of this blog post. So we won't go into quite as much detail, but the video itself is pretty self-explanatory. We're just creating the policy. So I've taken this policy from the configuration guide for DDVE on AWS, right? That's available at deltechnologies.com or its own website. Give the policy name something you remember. Right, and here you can see the service that we just write. Create policy. Right, so the role is something that we are going to refer to when we do the CloudFormation template. So again, something you're going to remember. So I've given it a meaningful name here. So DDVE S3 role. Role and job done. So we'll refer back to this, as I said, later on. So next up, we're going to create our S3 endpoint. We did a video on this in this series, a lot more detail. So we'll skip through quite a bit of this. But as you can see here, so the endpoint, we need to create an endpoint to allow DDVE to speak or talk to S3, which is in the public domain, right? And we do this by this internal routing mechanism, which is this S3. Gateway endpoint type. We're going to do interface, we'll get charged for that. Attached to our VPC, we have only one VPC, and of course attached to our private routing table, which in turn is attached to our private subnet. Create endpoint. Stop and pause, just wait for that to pop in. Take a quick look at our routing table, and you should be able to see that pointing to the prefix list of the S3 interfaces. All right, so we'll double click on this here and we'll see all the IP address spaces. Right, so up next we're going to just create the security group that we'll attach when we're deploying the CloudFormation template. I'm going to skip through again. Again, we've done this in the previous video, but I'll just do a quick run through, and I'll fast forward the video in parts, right? So it's a little bit tedious because we've been through this before. Right. So the important point here, of course, is that this security group is just for demo. Please refer to the documentation. It can change and is subject to change and but the purpose of this is so we can execute the CloudFormation template. Again, I think I've just have to type up what I just talked about. And here we'll quickly skip through the rule generation for upload. Generic stuff around replication, HTTPS access, so on and so forth. Same for outbound. Right, and now we're nearly ready to. I think we've got everything in place, and we can kick off the template itself and deploy DDVE. Just the final rule. Right, we should be good to go now. So let's launch the marketplace where we can pull down the CloudFormation template, install DDVE or Dell Protection Storage for Apex, right? Or Dell Apex Protection Storage for AWS rather. Right, so just do a search, as I said, either DDVE or Dell Apex, and you'll find it. And continue to subscribe. I've already subscribed for the software, but this is very straightforward. We continue to configuration. So our fulfillment option is CloudFormation. We're going to use 7.11 as the latest version of the software. Just be careful of the region we deploy in. We want to deploy it in the same region that our S3 instance is deployed. So my instance is EU Ireland. All right, to continue to launch. So hopefully, as I said, some of this will be a lot clearer in terms of what we're doing based on previous parts of these videos and the other. Click next here. So specify the stack details, or this is basically the configuration template for that AWS will use to deploy DDVE. Right. So the model type we're going to use the smallest. We're going to keep the footprint small as well from a demo perspective. So metadata disks, I think the default is 2, but we're going to reduce that to 1. We'll give it a name. Next, IAM role. So this is why I said earlier on that we'll give this a memorable name. Key pair, give it a key pair, and put it in the private subnet. Right, so private subnet for AZ2. Security group we just configured. And from an S3 perspective, we're going to not configure S3. We've already configured S3 and we'll attach that when we do configuration. Click next. And just going up and down there. So I said you have an option for the template to deploy S3 directly, but I said in this instance we won't do it, and we will attach when we do the DDVE configuration. So here it is, it's kicked off. It's obviously takes quite a bit of time to deploy, or well, a relative amount of time. So let's sign into our console proper and see what's happening. EC2, and we should see that EC2 instance spinning up. Here we go. Right, so DDVE Apex demo, that's the tag we gave it. It's in initializing state. EU West 1B, so that's the region we gave it, or the AZ we gave it. Let's see if it's doing configuring any volumes. Right, and as it is, right, so it's trying to attach, they're in use, right, so it hasn't been fully configured yet, right, so there's still ongoing work happening here. Back to our instances, yep, still initializing. So let's jump into the instance itself. You can see it's got to the point where it's deployed and given it's an IP address or allocated an IP address. Back to the CloudFormation input itself, and we can see that there's, so the stack status very complete from the stack perspective. Looking in the events tab, you can see all the stuff that it's doing in the background. So creating metadisks, mounting mount points, mounting storage rather. These are the resources the template is deploying. Outputs, configuration parameters next that we created already. And here's the template, right? In YAML format or JSON format rather. So Okay, so still initial. We're gonna do a little bit of magic here and pause the video. And just by magic, as I said, back we come. So it's deployed, right? So it's running. So now we want to configure or connect to DDVE. So we're going to do this, right, by going to our Bastian host, right, and connecting to this IP address from our Bastian host. Remember, DDVE is in a private subnet, so we can't connect directly from the internet. We have to jump by the Bastian. So let's see if we can ping it. We can't. Of course we can't, right? Because we didn't allow ICMP on the security group that was attached to the installation. So that's good. It shouldn't be able to ping. Okay, so on the other hand though, we should be able to browse with our HTTPS to DDVE in order to do the configuration. So fingers crossed this will work. So for some reason I forgot the IP address, I just copied. Just paste that in. And yes, this looks good, right? So advance, proceed. Yep, and we've got that friendly DD system manager splash page. So we're going to log in. So the login is the instance ID, or the initial login is the instance ID of the user instance. So that long I-0f105 ... Copy that over, back in. Login, sysadmin, copy paste the password, login. Now it'll ask me to change the password on first login. So we'll pick something. I pick something here that adheres to the policy, or the password policy. New password, confirm new password, and save, and off we go. And it should bring us into the configuration page. Right, so obviously we're going to have lots of alerts because, just sign the EULA here first. We're going to have lots of alerts because obviously we haven't configured the file system. So those familiar with DD will know we'll have to configure the file system first. And as part of this video series as well, or the next video series, what we'll do is we will attach the S3 or S3 instance to DDVE. Servers as target object storage. Right, so that's pretty much it. So there's a couple of more screens. We'll flip through all this. So hopefully found this video useful. And the purpose of this video, as I said, getting to a point where we do this, right? Yep, and the plan is we'll do another series of videos to make this. Thank you for your time. Cheers.